Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Joe Biden has officially been inaugurated as President of the United States, and Kamala Harris is now the first woman to serve as Vice President. Biden gave his inaugural address in front of a small crowd at the Capitol building. Though President Trump departed the White House, it may not be the last time people see of him. He gave supporters a message about the future. Mike Pompeo remains an outspoken critic of the Chinese regime's human rights abuses. Before leaving office, he labeled Beijing's treatment of the Uyghur minority genocide. Now he and 27 other Trump officials are officially sanctioned from traveling to China. Trump pardoned over 70 individuals in his last remaining hours in office, but it's been revealed that neither himself nor his family members were among those receiving them. The new president gets to work immediately, signing 15 executive orders on his first day in office, over half of them on reversing President Trump's policies. Joe Biden is now the 46th President of the United States following his swearing-in ceremony at the Capitol building today. He delivered his inaugural address in which he laid out his priorities as president. NTD's Kevin Hogan has more on the ceremony and Biden's speech.
To the next President of the United States, Joseph R. Biden.
In a ceremony in front of a few hundred attendees at the Capitol building, Chief Justice John Roberts swore in Joe Biden as the next President of the United States. Biden placed his left hand on a copy of the Bible as he held his right hand and took the presidential oath.
And will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States. So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
Biden looked out over the National Mall, occupied by a field of flags, and delivered his first speech as president. Biden is the oldest person to become president. In his speech, he saluted the oldest former president alive.
I thank my predecessors of both parties for their presence here today. I thank them from the bottom of my heart. And I know the resilience of our Constitution and the strength of our nation, as does President Carter, who I spoke with last night, who cannot be with us today, but whom we salute for his lifetime in service.
President Biden took a moment to recognize his running mate, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Here we stand, looking out on the great mall where Dr. King spoke of his dream. Here we stand where 108 years ago, at another inaugural, thousands of protesters tried to block brave women marching for the right to vote. And today, we mark the swearing in of the first woman in American history elected to national office, Vice President Kamala Harris. Don't tell me things can't change.
Biden and Harris are set to deliver remarks at the Celebrating America inaugural program at 8:45 p.m. Eastern. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
What does Biden's inaugural speech say about his administration? NTD's Christina Kim spoke to congressional correspondent Max Tapscott for more.
Biden gave a speech during his swearing-in ceremony as president. He highlighted the problems the country faces and called for unity.
To restore the soul and secure the future of America requires so much more than words. It requires the most elusive of all things in a democracy: unity.
Mark Tapscott, the congressional correspondent for the Epoch Times, says it was very typical of inaugural speeches.
I was impressed with it in the sense that it was a very traditional inauguration speech. He said all the right things. That I commend his speechwriter. Those are great words.
Tapscott adds that what is important are not the words, but the actions Biden and his administration will take.
The great words about being unified and building a new America and a great dawn, and so forth, which is very Reagan-esque rhetoric, by the way. That's great, but the actions that he appears to be intent on taking are going to lead in a very different direction.
He says it was a good speech, but these days, good speeches aren't as important.
There were passages in Biden's speech that Reagan could have very easily delivered. The difference is that Reagan was credible in saying those things with most Americans. Today, most Americans, frankly, don't put a whole lot of stock in what any politician in Washington says.
The Biden administration is expected to rely on many executive orders to undo many of Trump's policies. Tapscott believes this will cause a lot of division.
I think a lot of folks are going to just frankly stop listening when Biden talks about these unity and greatness for America, because frankly it's not consistent with what we can expect him to be doing.
Tapscott says it's encouraging to know that many Americans still broadly believe in lower taxes, a small government, strong borders, and a strong stance against China. He looks to the 2022 congressional races and believes the trend will be reflected there. Christina Kim, NTD News.
The inauguration of Joe Biden as president marks a shift in policy and agenda compared to the Trump administration. Trump has spoken about opening the economy and tapping into the nation's energy resources, whereas Biden mentioned we are heading toward a dark winter and said he expects to rejoin the Paris Agreement. NTD's Kevin Hogan spoke with an international journalist for his take on some differences between the two administrations.
The executive branch is expected to take a drastic change in policy direction. That's based on President Biden's speech and statements he has made leading up to the inauguration. Biden said his priorities as president include the pandemic, racism, white supremacy, and stopping domestic terrorists, which he labeled the Capitol rioters as. Alex Newman, the president of Liberty Sentinel, offers his perspective on this.
When an American thinks of terrorism, they think of beheadings, they think of bombings, they think of mass murder of civilians, they think of horrifying persecution, the kind of things that we've seen from ISIS and from communist terrorist groups around the world, not some imbeciles breaking into the Capitol and breaking some windows and hurting some doors and maybe carrying a podium around the floor for a little while. So I think what they're setting us up for here is actually persecution of political dissidents.
Joe Biden's son Hunter was involved with Chinese equity firms, some with close ties to the regime in Beijing. And Kamala Harris's husband, Doug Emhoff, has worked for law firm DLA Piper, which has served the Chinese regime. Trump took a hardline stance against China. Newman suspects the new administration may take a different approach.
And so I think they're planning on being very, very soft toward China. I think the Paris Agreement is almost a perfect example of this. The Paris Agreement, what it does in practice is dismantles what's left of our productive capacity and shifts it over to China. Right? We know that if you cause power prices, electricity prices to surge in the United States, as they intend to do by rejoining the Paris Agreement, we know that's going to make American businesses uncompetitive. That's going to shift the remaining productive capacity that we have over to China.
Trump has said that as we now better understand the disease caused by the CCP virus, we can open up the country. This contrasts with Biden's statement in his speech that we are headed for a dark winter as we face the pandemic. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
On his first day as president, Joe Biden signed more executive orders than the last 4 presidents on their first days combined. Many of the orders reversing President Trump's policies. Sitting in the Oval Office, Biden signed 15 executive orders and 2 executive actions. The orders include a 100-day mask mandate, rejoining the Paris Climate Accord, stopping the withdrawal from the World Health Organization, rescinding the Trump administration's 1776 commission, halting construction of the border wall, undoing Trump's expansion of immigration enforcement, fortifying the DACA program, and canceling the Keystone oil pipeline. Throughout his presidential campaign, Biden made it clear he'd use executive authority to undo many of Trump's policies. The new president is expected to sign several more executive actions over the next 10 days. During his speech, Biden said he'll focus on racial equality, climate change, and the pandemic. And while the Capitol would normally be teeming with crowds for the inauguration ceremony, today was boarded up and almost empty. But NTD's Miguel Moreno did manage to find some people in D.C. who came out to support the new president. Here's what they had to say.
So in his speech, President Biden said that this was a day for America and that this wasn't a win for a certain candidate. He said that this was a win for democracy. And we were walking around for a while here in D.C. looking for areas that were open, seeing how many people were here, and we really didn't see much happening. We did see some demonstrations at Black Lives Matter Plaza, but around the area we weren't seeing too many Biden supporters or Trump supporters, really not many people. But here at the end of New Jersey Avenue, we got close enough to the Capitol, and there were actually a fair amount of people there. Many of them were in support of President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris, and they were cheering as they were watching the inauguration on their phones, so they knew exactly what was happening. And we walked around. We did interview a few people about what they expect in the next 4 years, especially unity, because President Biden has said that unity will be one of these big things. He made that a focal point in his speech. So we asked them if they would see that, but some of them, while they were hopeful, they weren't expecting or too optimistic that there would be unity in the next 4 years. Do you think we'll see more unity in the next 4 years?
Well, that's really difficult to say. I can definitely say that I hope so.
Hope so. I don't know, but I hope so.
And here's what they say they would like to see from Biden's administration.
Listen, he doesn't have to do much in order to for it to get better. But I expect it to get better. The economy, it's going to take a while. He's got a lot to work with, this pandemic and the financial part,
For me, personally, I'm not a huge Biden supporter, but I am excited to see Joe Biden in the Oval Office, mostly because I really want the United States to regain its respect on the global political stage again.
Well, I'd like to see the end of the pandemic, and I would like to see the police defunded, and I would like to see real moves towards racial justice.
She also says she has mixed feelings about the heavy police and military presence, saying a part of her felt frustrated that there's now a lot of hope in the police after a year of trying to defund them, yet that she herself feels a sense of safety with them around. A number of other Biden supporters in the Capitol said they felt the 25,000-strong National Guard presence was necessary. Reporting by Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Joe Biden's swearing into office as President of the United States got a reaction from the international community. World leaders offered their congratulations and expressed their hopes of working with the new administration.
Following the inauguration of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris as President and Vice President of the United States, world leaders went on social media to give their responses. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson said he really congratulates Biden and Harris on their achievement. When asked about whether or not Biden was woke, this is what he had to say.
What I can tell you is that I think that it's very, very important for everybody and certainly I will put myself in the category of people who believe that it's important to stick up for your history, your traditions, and your values and things you believe in.
With similar themes, they all congratulated them on being sworn in, and that they look forward to working with them. In his tweets, French President Emmanuel Macron offered his best wishes to Biden and Harris and welcomed the U.S. back to the Paris Agreement.
President Trump left the White House earlier today and headed to Florida. He gave his final remarks at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland. NTD's Christina Kim reports.
During a stop at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, President Trump transferred from Marine One to Air Force One. President Trump and Melania said serving as President and First Lady was their greatest honor. He said his administration worked tirelessly and referred to a saying athletes have: they left it all on the field. He thanked his supporters, his family, friends, and staff.
You are amazing people. This is a great, great country. It is my greatest honor and privilege to have been your president.
Following tradition, President Trump left a note for his successor, but details of the note are unknown. Trump touted the achievements of his administration and promised he would always stand up for the American people.
I will always fight for you. I will be watching, I will be listening.
President Trump said the future of this country has never been better and wished the new administration luck and success. He said the new administration has the foundation to do something spectacular. Referencing the U.S. economy, Trump told the audience that you're going to see incredible numbers coming in if Biden leaves his policies untouched. He told his supporters to keep an eye out for the future.
So just a goodbye. We love you. We will be back in some form.
It's unclear in what form President Trump will return. For now, he has arrived at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Florida. Christina Kim, NTD News.
President Trump is now settling in at his permanent home in Florida. He was offered a warm welcome by a miles-long crowd of his supporters. NTD's Melina Weiskup reports from West Palm Beach.
As you can see, the enthusiasm is still super strong here. So I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida right now, just a 5-minute drive away from President Trump's new permanent residence. It's kind of cleared out right now because many people have started to go home. But earlier, these sidewalks were packed with Trump supporters welcoming the president to his new permanent home here in Florida.
And what you see here, you actually see every time when he came to town. There were always people here like this.
A lot of the supporters told us that they're here because they want Trump to feel their unwavering dedication and support. And it seems like that's exactly what he felt when he passed by. Him and Melania both had a huge smile on their face. You could tell they felt very touched by seeing all these people out here to support them today.
And it's a big thank you. It's a big heartfelt thank you. We do. We love him and we appreciate him. And now I think there's this renewed love for America that's not going away.
I want Trump to feel the love that we all have for him, not just here in Palm Beach, but all over the country. You know, there's 80 million of us. We've dedicated our lives to him and the MAGA movement, and it's not going to go away today.
So, of course, Trump has said multiple times that this is just the beginning of Make America Great Again. We're not sure exactly what that means. Some people here said they think that he's going to run for office again in 2024, but we'll just have to wait and see for that.
I think he will continue to expose the corruption, the lies, the cheating that has been going on for many years, I think. I had no idea when I first came to the country that this is even going on.
You know, the only thing I'm waiting for is Trump going to run as a Republican or is it going to form the third party? And whatever he does, we're going to be behind him.
So I think right now it's just a waiting game to see what exactly he means by the fact that this is not over. In the next couple of days and weeks and months and even years, we'll see what Trump plans to do and how he plans to continue on this movement that's gained a lot of momentum over the past 4 years. Reporting in West Palm Beach, Florida, Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
And Trump's children, Eric, Ivanka, Donald Jr., and Tiffany, are sharing farewell messages on social media.
In a tweet, Eric Trump says, "Without a doubt, the best is yet to come." He then says, "My hope for Americans is that we never tolerate the old norm. And take what we have learned in the past 4 years and we continue to fight for the liberties and pride that allows us to be red, white, and blue." Eric Trump says this about the Trump family: "We have carried tremendous weight through unprecedented resistance and persecution." He emphasizes the sacrifice by President Trump and the entire family for the nation. Ivanka Trump, an advisor to the president, wrote on Twitter, "The last 4 years have been an incredible journey." She then adds her appreciation for the compassion, grace, and grit across the nation. And she says, "I hope and believe that America can move forward in a positive way, acknowledging our differences and find common ground. That is how we will remain the greatest nation." Donald Trump Jr. shared a brief message on Instagram thanking his father. It reads, "America owes you a debt of gratitude." Tiffany, Trump's second daughter, writes on Twitter recalling the many memories and milestones while at the White House, including her recent engagement to her fiancé, Michael Bullis. Trump praised the administration's achievements on Wednesday, including job records, being tough on the Chinese regime, the stock market, and more. There is a speculation that Trump may start a new political party.
Shortly before Joe Biden was sworn into office, President Trump pardoned over 70 people and replaced more lenient sentences for 70 more individuals. It was one of his final decisions he made in office.
People who were granted a full pardon include Steve Bannon and rapper Lil Wayne. Published on the White House's official website is a list of 73 presidential pardons and 70 commutations. The power to pardon applies to federal crimes and is one of the broadest powers available to the president. Other branches of government cannot review the president's decision to pardon. Bannon was charged with fraud relating to fundraising for a private border wall project. His trial was supposed to be May of this year, before the presidential pardon. Lil Wayne was prosecuted on federal weapons charges. According to a White House announcement, he has since exhibited this generosity through commitment to a variety of charities, including donations to research hospitals and a host of food banks. Other individuals were given commutations or substitutions for a lesser sentence, including rapper Kodak Black and former mayor of Detroit, both of whom had the support from religious and community leaders. However, President Trump did not pardon himself for any charges made against him. Neither did he do so for his family members or his lawyer, Rudy Giuliani.
And Trump left office today, but as one of his last moves as president, he addressed the threat of cyber attacks facing America.
On his last full day in the White House, President Trump signed an executive order. It addresses the use of cloud computing products and cyber attacks against the U.S. The order asks the Commerce Department to draft regulations that require an American cloud computing company to identify foreign users. The computing service United States Infrastructure as a Service, or IaaS, allows people to run software and store data. Foreign cyber actors, however, are also able to steal U.S. intellectual property and sensitive data by targeting this critical infrastructure. The executive order would authorize the Commerce Department to ban accounts that are found to have offered IaaS products for cyber attacks. President Trump says that, quote, this order provides authority to impose record-keeping obligations with respect to foreign transactions. This executive order comes at a time when cyber attacks are posing an increasing threat to U.S. government infrastructure. In late 2020, a massive cyber hack of the SolarWinds system affected multiple federal government agencies.
The Chinese regime imposes new sanctions on Trump administration officials. That includes former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo, an outspoken critic of the regime's human rights violations.
The Chinese Communist Party's Ministry of Foreign Affairs will impose sanctions on former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and other Trump administration officials. The retaliatory move comes one day after Pompeo declared the CCP's repression of Uyghur Muslims in the Xinjiang region a genocide. Biden's pick for Secretary of State Antony Blinken told a Senate hearing on Tuesday that he agreed with the designation. The CCP's repression of Uyghurs has drawn international condemnation. It's perpetrated through a network of internment camps and a massive surveillance system. A CCP ministry spokesperson defended the sanctions against Pompeo and 27 others by claiming that they undertook, quote, crazy actions, damaged U.S.-China relations, and hurt the feelings of the Chinese people. The American officials named and their immediate family members will be banned from entering mainland China, Hong Kong, and Macau. The sanction also restricts companies affiliated with them from doing business with China.
President Biden's nominee for Secretary of State is proposing a new approach to countering the influence of the CCP. We spoke with an expert to see his perspective on this new approach. Our reporter Juliet Song has the story.
At the confirmation hearing on Tuesday, President Biden's pick for Secretary of State said he agrees with Trump's approach to China in some aspects.
I also believe that President Trump was right in taking a tougher approach to China. I disagree very much with the way that he went about it in a number of areas, but the basic principle was the right one, and I think that's actually helpful to our foreign policy.
Blinken says there is no doubt China poses the most significant challenge of any nation-state to the U.S.
There are, as I see it, rising adversarial aspects to the relationship, certainly competitive ones, and still some cooperative ones when it is in our mutual interest.
He adds that the U.S. needs to deal with the communist regime by working with allies, what he calls a position of strength.
Position of strength when we are working with, not denigrating, our allies. That's a source of strength for us in dealing with China.
A U.S.-based China commentator says the biggest difference between the two administrations' China approaches is their foundation.
The Trump administration approaches the Chinese regime from an ideological perspective. That's why we see when Pompeo told the European countries it's not a choice between the U.S. and China, but a choice between freedom and tyranny.
Tang says Blinken's China approach aims to form an interest-based alliance to counter Beijing.
And an alliance based on interest would bring a problem. Even though it looks powerful by numbers, it's also loose and easy to break apart. And we're already seeing alarming signs now.
Multiple U.S. allies signed economic deals with China in recent months. This includes countries in both Europe and the Asia-Pacific region.
So if you want to corner the Chinese Communist Party with an interest-based alliance, the CCP can also easily split up and corrupt your allies with economic interests. Signing these trade deals suggests these countries won't suggest cooperation with the communist regime on some important economic areas.
Tang adds that as long as the Chinese regime can get its hands on Western capital and technology, it can use it to grow its power to a point beyond control.
And then it can overtake the United States as the most powerful country in the world. Once it reaches that level, no country in this world will be able to rein in the CCP. It could really dominate the world.
He says the Chinese regime's conflict with the international society is rooted in its communist ideology, and that crippling the regime's economic power would be one of the most effective ways to counter its influence. Juliet Song, NTD News.
President Trump worked closely with the Treasury Department to counter threats from China. But how will the department look under President Biden? NTD's Penny Zhou has more on the big China decision awaiting Biden's nominee for Treasury Secretary.
Another important cabinet member that has a big say in how America's China policy goes is the Treasury Secretary. President Biden's nominee for that post is Janet Yellen. The former Federal Reserve Chair will have to make some big decisions, including what to do with President Trump's tariffs and sanctions against Communist China, and how to deal with national security risks posed by Chinese tech companies.
Well, China is clearly our most important strategic competitor. As you said, we need to work with allies. We also need to strengthen our own economy so that we can compete. We need to take on China's abusive, unfair, and illegal practices. We're prepared to use the full array of tools to address. Of course, it is important over time to work with our allies.
By framing China as a strategic competitor, Yellen echoes other Biden cabinet members. And her emphasis on working with allies is in line with her previous criticism against what's often called the unilateral approach President Trump adopted when countering China. It mainly refers to the trade war. President Trump slapped tariffs on hundreds of billions worth of Chinese imports, thus to punish the regime's abusive trade behaviors. Yellen has been a vocal critic of Trump's trade war against China, but neither she nor President Biden has said whether they will remove the tariffs. They have also been vague about exactly how they will counter threats from Communist China if they were to replace Trump's policies. President Trump relied heavily on the Treasury Department's sanction to punish CCP officials involved in human rights abuses. It remains to be seen whether Yellen would keep these approaches. If confirmed as Treasury Secretary, Yellen would also need to decide what to do with Chinese tech companies. President Trump considered banning TikTok and other Chinese apps, citing Americans' data safety as a concern. All Chinese companies are required by law to share intelligence with the CCP when necessary. Yellen has previously warned of the risks of technological decoupling between the U.S. and China, saying, quote, the rivalry could hinder technological progress since it will stop countries' abilities to learn from each other. In addition, Yellen will oversee CFIUS. That's an agency within the department that assesses whether a certain foreign investment poses a threat to U.S. national security.
Our colleagues believe that China has found gaps in both the existing CFIUS process and export control regime, and is exploiting each of them to the detriment of U.S. national security.
In the past few years, the agency has stepped up its scrutiny of Chinese investment. It has banned a suspicious Chinese company from acquiring U.S. firms possessing large amounts of sensitive user data. It remains to be seen whether the new secretary will keep the pressure on the CCP or change course. Penny Zhou, NTD News.
If you're like me,
and I think it's actually most of us, then you're getting really fed up with the nonsense going on inside the banking system. I mean, we've worked hard our entire lives to retire comfortably. We just recovered from the crash of 2008, and it seems like it's about to happen all over again. Look at the too-big-to-fail banks. They're only getting bigger as the Fed hands them trillions of dollars daily, while simple folks like you and me, we're only getting the short end of the stick. That's why I'm glad I found this book called The Bank Failure Survival Guide. Give us a call, and we'll send you a free copy with no obligations whatsoever, just one American to another, telling you about some options that you might not have considered. Call 866-239-2619 today for your free copy of the Bank Failure Survival Guide. That's 866-239-2619.
It's just clear as day. The media, whether it's broadcast, cable, or print media, has become extremely biased. And I started looking online for alternative ways to get information. And I saw an ad for a free trial. And I looked at it and I said, Epoch Times. I mean, come on, this is end of days type of stuff. I mean, what are they going to be talking about here? And I said, well, it's a free trial. Let me dig in. Is it giving me both sides? Is it giving me an objective point of view here? I have looked for opportunities to see where they might be biased, and I don't find it. It has given me a level of trust in media that I didn't think I'd ever get back. I love the Epoch Times because it has renewed my faith in the idea that a reliable, responsible, non-biased source of information is available. And I can say that I love it because of that.
A Southern California school board member faces a signature campaign demanding her resignation. It's because she attended the Washington, D.C. Trump rally on January 6th. NTD's Zach Lee has more.
This was kind of expected because, I'm conservative and they don't agree with my views.
Leandra Blades is a former anti-terrorism officer with the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. In 2020, she was elected as a school board member for the Placentia-Yorba Linda Unified School District, but now she is facing a petition with over 8,000 people calling for her resignation because of this photo. Her friend posted the photo when they went on a girls' trip to attend the Trump rally in Washington, D.C. on January 6th.
We left the rally because we heard that there was violence inside. That's not what I was there for. That's not what my friends were there for. That's not what the people around us were there for.
Blades said she never went into the Capitol building, nor was she aware of the rioting before taking the picture. But that picture drew a lot of attention overnight. A group of students from her district, named PYLUSD Against Terrorism, started a campaign right afterwards. They claimed Blades supported the domestic terrorists and demanded her to immediately resign. The former officer and now school board member said she is not a terrorist nor an insurrectionist.
It's awful to be called a terrorist when all I've ever done as a law enforcement officer is wanting to uphold the law. I believe in law and order, but I also too am a strong supporter of our Constitution. And I'm a strong supporter of our Constitution for both sides.
Blades said although her messages were flooded with hate mail, she also got a lot of support. Some students created a different page on change.org asking people to stand with Blades. It has collected nearly 5,000 signatures.
I will continue to stand up for my beliefs. I'm not resigning. I'm not going to back down. It's just what I believe in. I believe in being fair. I believe in working together with people who may not agree with me. And I just believe that we can do so much better, not only as a community, but as a nation.
Blades said the petition has no restraining effect on her position, but she believes it is also a good opportunity for students and parents to express their conservative values who once felt that they had no voice. Reporting by Alex Marashko and Zach Lee, NTD News, Los Angeles.
How will the Biden administration handle issues of religious liberty? Legal defense lawyers discuss their hopes and concerns.
During an online conference, a nonprofit legal defense organization called the Pacific Justice Institute discussed the potential impacts that a change in presidential administration would have on religious liberty.
There's the Equality Act that already passed the House, so it'll probably pass the House and the Senate. Good chance it'll be become law, the Do No Harms Act. These are things that are going to put burdens on Christian schools, churches, ministries, businesses, Christian-owned businesses, to have to compromise their faith. It's very, very serious. And we talked about this last year, but we are preparing to defend these institutions against this clear attack on their fundamental First Amendment rights for religious freedom, the right to gather and free speech.
They are concerned that the new administration would not be as friendly towards religious institutions as the Trump administration, and foresee some challenges churches may face, like free speech, property taxes, and growth.
We at Pacific Justice Institute have defended countless numbers of churches already who have to deal with these kinds of hostile, discriminatory harassment and treatment by local governments. We stand ready and willing to do that on the local level, the state level, and the federal level.
Some of the things that the president did, President Trump did in terms of making sure basically at every turn that we were being taken care of in religious liberty from the Department of Justice.
However, he is hopeful and sees this as an opportunity to change.
I think that one of the beautiful things about when times change, we've had a liberal administration, we have seen more opportunities and opportunities for us to push through the courts. And perhaps that leads us to some things that are really hopeful relative to the courts.
Here in Nevada, we had casinos open and open for business, and yet churches were shut or limited at the time that this came before the court to only 50 people. And the court said absolutely not. The Ninth Circuit said knock it off. And so the Ninth Circuit issued an immediate and permanent injunction against the governor, saying you cannot limit churches to less than 25% capacity, same as you're treating casinos, going forward.
The organization currently has 11 offices in 9 states and expects to grow to 20 states within the next few years. Reporting by NTD News, Santa Clara, California.
Coming up, Asia's richest man steps down, but his resignation is sparking concern over his company's virus vaccine. That and more after the break. Asia's richest man has stepped down. He's the owner of a Chinese drug maker that currently has a virus vaccine in the works. His resignation is sparking concern. NTD's Tiffany Meyer brings us more.
Now we turn to the wealthiest man in Asia. Chinese businessman Zhong Sansan resigned as chairman of a drug maker for personal reasons last week. Zhong is the founder of Wantai Biopharm. Forbes says his net worth reaches about $90 billion, making him the most affluent man in China. That's as of January 1st. Despite the resignation, he still holds over 70% of the company's shares, both directly and indirectly. The company says its CCP virus vaccine is still in phase 2 of clinical trials. The research and development phase has been slower than its competitors. As a result, the company's share price is facing about 10% fluctuations. Another Chinese drug maker is in a similar situation. The chairman and general manager of Sinopharm Group also resigned last week for personal reasons. The abrupt moves have sparked suspicion, especially as the safety and effectiveness of Chinese vaccines are facing questions from international experts. Now we turn to a Chinese lab responsible for processing virus test results. It's since been found to have falsified some results. More than 300,000 residents in China's Xingtai City, part of Hebei province, were tested for the virus on January 12th and 13th. The next day, the Huaxi Medical Testing Lab delivered the test results. Not a single test came back positive. But by using other means, the city's health department discovered a number of positive test samples. The findings prompted them to retest 10 residents as part of an experiment. 3 of them came back positive. The city announced that the lab reported faulty results on Sunday. Since then, the city has been put under lockdown. Chinese media reported that the lab can process 100,000 samples a day. Operating at that rate, it would have been impossible for the facility to deliver 300,000 individual test results within one day. According to a senior manager from the lab's parent company, the lab was still testing the samples at the time the results were delivered. The medical lab report had not yet been issued at the time. But the lab's management asked employees to expedite the process, so one employee finalized the results before finishing the testing. The lab's parent company has 54 subsidiaries and 33 labs across China. It's unknown if the company was involved in mass testing samples from other cities.
The founder of e-commerce giant Alibaba meets with 100 rural teachers in China via video conference. It's the businessman's first appearance since October, triggering a sharp jump in the company's Hong Kong-listed shares.
So I just don't see that.
After months of speculation about his whereabouts, China's richest man, Jack Ma, has resurfaced in a short online video praising China's teachers. It's the first time the founder of Alibaba has been seen in public since October, when he blasted China's regulatory system during a speech at a Shanghai forum. Those comments set him on a collision course with Beijing officials and led to the abrupt suspension of the IPO of Ant Group, the payments firm he controls. The blockbuster listing had been set to be the largest ever before it was abruptly pulled in November. Weeks later, Ma skipped the filming of a TV talent show he created for African entrepreneurs. His absence led to media reports and speculation that he was missing. Wednesday's reappearance by Ma has driven a sharp jump in Alibaba's shares. In the video, he praises 100 teachers and tells them we will meet again when the health crisis is over. According to local reports, the online event was the Jack Ma Rural Teachers Award ceremony. His physical whereabouts were not disclosed. Ma's video came as Alibaba now faces an antitrust investigation by Chinese regulators.
Coming up, New York City's wealthiest face the highest income tax in the country if the governor doesn't get the relief he's asking for. More on that after the break.
When you look at TV networks in America, a soundbite and fight-it-out culture prevails on news and commentary programs. As a Canadian, I'm fascinated with America, and I wanted to offer American thought leaders an opportunity to share their thoughts in a deep dive format, where we can explore their ideas together. And so American Thought Leaders was born. The world's most brilliant thinkers believed that open discourse was the key to greatness. However, all around the world, we see that discourse is being stifled and political agendas have subverted media. The Epoch Times launched its Global Thought Leaders program to bring back this great tradition of free thought. As the host of American Thought Leaders, every week I interview some of the most intriguing minds on the most pressing issues of our time. Be sure to check out our new episodes every week.
New York is broke, and so they have a decision to make. Make the wealthy pay more taxes, but risk them fleeing to another state, or ask the government for a bailout. Governor Cuomo wants $15 billion from the federal government, or he's taking from the rich.
Governor Andrew Cuomo says he might raise taxes to a combined level of 14.7% for New York's wealthiest residents. That'd be the highest state and local tax rate in the country. He says it would raise $1.5 billion and cover the state's historic budget shortfall due to the virus. Cuomo said the previous record deficit was $10 billion. Now it's $15 billion. He wants the Biden administration to cover it by giving New York $15 billion in aid for the next 2 years. If they don't get it, he'll consider raising the income tax 2 percentage points for top earners to 10.86%. That's up from 8.82%. But he says he's concerned the increase would make wealthy New Yorkers leave the state. The top 2% already give around half the state's income tax revenue. State Democrat lawmakers support Cuomo's tax increase proposal. Meanwhile, the top Republican in the state assembly said Cuomo's passing the buck on to Washington, D.C. If the federal government gives New York the extra aid, Cuomo promises new initiatives to help New York recover from the pandemic.
If you own a Ford, listen up. The U.S. auto safety regulator is ordering Ford to recall 3 million of them over faulty airbags. There are problems with Mazda vehicles, too. It will have to recall and repair driver airbags for nearly 6,000 vehicles. The recalls cover various models between 2006 and 2012. In rare cases, the airbag inflators burst and send metal fragments flying, especially after long-term exposure to high humidity. The issue with Takata airbags has plagued the auto industry. Earlier this month, the agency said at least 17 million vehicles with Takata airbags still haven't been repaired. And Kroger shoppers could say goodbye to waiting in checkout lines if the new shopping cart it's been testing takes off. The cart, nicknamed KroGo, is being developed with a tech startup called Carper. It has a built-in card reader, which allows shoppers to pay at the cart itself versus waiting at the register. The cart also has a scale for items sold by weight. As an added bonus, there's also a screen that makes shopping suggestions and promotional offers. The cart is being tested at a store in the Cincinnati area where Kroger is based. The company told WGN it'll wait for feedback from shoppers and employees before deciding what to do next. And did WhatsApp ask you to accept a new privacy policy? Some aren't happy about it because they say it'll allow Facebook to get their data. And India is even less happy. It wants WhatsApp to withdraw the changes. It says the new terms take away choice from Indian users.
India's technology ministry says WhatsApp's privacy policy update raises grave concerns for the choice and autonomy of Indian users. Now the ministry is asking the company to withdraw the proposed changes. It's after WhatsApp said earlier this month the app could share limited user data with Facebook and its group firms. The ministry says the messaging app is treating Indian and European users differently, which amounts to discrimination. It said Indian users were not offered the option to opt out of the update, and they have less choice compared to the app's European users. WhatsApp is hoping India's tens of millions of traditional shop owners will be drawn to using digital payments via the app. Facebook invested $5.7 billion last year in the digital unit of Indian conglomerate Reliance, largely in support of this move. WhatsApp has 400 million users in India, but downloads of rival messaging apps have surged since the announcement of the privacy policy changes. WhatsApp says the update does not expand its ability to share data with Facebook. The company said last week it would delay the new policy launch from February to May.
Up next, the UK is helping Kenya to roll out the CCP virus vaccine. The UK says they regard it as their moral duty. And Belarus is stripped of this year's Hockey World Championship. Athletes and opposition supporters welcome the decision, saying it would have legitimized Lukashenko's rule. Find out more after the break.
Is deep-sea fish oil really healthy? Due to pollution in the oceans, most fish contain heavy metal elements and radioactive substances. That's why it's so important to choose a pure source of omega-3, Puritang green vegetable omega-3 is made from purslane and perilla seeds, which are rich in nutrients and minerals, especially vitamins A, D, E, calcium, and iron. With natural processing and no harmful chemical additives, it has more than 90% concentration of omegas 3, 6, 7, and 9. It effectively improves brain power and is beneficial to the heart's health. Puritang omega-3 does not smell of fish and contains no pollutants, so both adults and children can safely and easily consume it over a long period of time. Puritang green vegetable omega-3. Eat 2 a day and you'll feel brand new!
Over to Europe. A top UK lawyer hired by the Hong Kong government to prosecute pro-democracy activists quits, saying it's over pressure in the UK. NTD UK's Neil Woodrow will bring us more news from Europe.
Hello and welcome. Top lawyer David Perry QC, who was hired by the Hong Kong Justice Department to prosecute Hong Kong activists, has quit, citing widespread criticism and quarantine issues. A Hong Kong lawyer has been hired to replace him. The case is against 9 democracy activists, among them entrepreneur Jimmy Lai, Martin Lee and Margaret Ng. They had police permission for the rally but are accused of breaking the law for protesting outside the Victoria Park area. Britain says it is helping Kenya prepare the rollout of their CCP virus vaccine developed by AstraZeneca and Oxford University. Earl Rhodes has more.
The East African nation ordered 24 million doses of the vaccine and is expecting the shots to be delivered in the second week of February.
It is for us not just our moral duty, but in the British national interest to see Kenyans vaccinated just as soon as we physically, logistically can.
Britain says they're providing technical assistance to Kenya's health ministry to ensure the vaccine gets to those who need it.
This is all part of our new 5-year health partnership, which I will sign today with Cabinet Secretary Kagwe.
Kenya's government ordered its vaccines through the African Union, or AU initiative, aimed at ensuring African nations are not left behind. According to a draft briefing on the plan by the African Export-Import Bank, African countries are paying between $3 and $10 per vaccine dose. Earl Rhodes, NTD News.
At least 2 are dead and several injured after a building in central Madrid, Spain, partially collapses following an explosion. The building belongs to the Catholic Church, according to the city's mayor. An initial investigation suggests the blast is caused by a gas leak. The top 5 floors are totally destroyed, with walls blown out. The bottom 2 floors are mostly intact, but charred in places from the flames. One of the injured is in serious condition and hospitalized. A church official says 1 volunteer is missing. Italian Coast Guards find a submerged dead whale near Naples after following a whale calf in distress. The 65-foot body subsequently surfaced and was closely monitored by the Coast Guard, who decided to carry out an operation to move it to land. They towed the body to the coastal village of Sorrento's harbour. An autopsy will be held to try to discover the cause of the whale's death. The whale's skeleton will eventually be displayed in a museum, the Coast Guard says. Coast Guard members continue to monitor the sea for any more sightings of the calf. Belarusian athletes and opposition supporters welcome a decision to strip Belarus of this year's Ice Hockey World Championship, a prestigious event they say would have given the country's embattled president an international boost. Eddie Aitken has the story.
The arrival of such large international federations holding such a major tournament would have legitimised Lukashenko's rule.
The International Ice Hockey Federation, or IIHF Council, says that it's currently impossible to ensure the welfare of teams, spectators and officials while holding a world championship in Belarus. On Monday, in a talk to the president of the IIHF, Lukashenko said he would not take offense.
Do what is best for hockey, for your friends and for you personally. We will not take offense.
Following the decision, the Belarusian government said it regrets the IIHF's unfounded decision. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
More than 100 British musicians, from pop idols to classic stars, warn their Europe tours are in danger because of Brexit. In a letter published on the Times newspaper, the musicians say the government broke a promise to negotiate visa-free travel for them in the European Union. Signatories of the letter include Ed Sheeran, Elton John and conductor Simon Rattle. Brexit means that UK citizens can't live and work freely in the EU. Though tourists can stay up to 90 days without a visa, artists and musicians are not included in the deal. Russian Orthodox Christians celebrate the Feast of Epiphany, marking the end of their 12-day Christmas period. Some submerge themselves in freezing water in underground lakes. Lorraine Ferrier has more.
Deep in Russia's Perm region, the faithful travel to the Kunga ice cave. The site, a popular tourist destination, is said to be the only cave in the world to offer believers the chance to do so.
We have developed such a good tradition in the city of Kungur to bless the underground lake here on the Epiphany Day.
Through the ice-cold dip, they hope to symbolically cleanse themselves of sin.
I have been dipping for several years. I skipped it last year, but now I decided to come. The cave is a very interesting place, an unusual underground site.
This year's Epiphany is overshadowed by the pandemic. The number of visitors at the cave is limited to 40, whereas about 100 would have joined in normal times. Not all Orthodox Christian churches celebrate the Feast of Epiphany on the same day. Churches in Russia, Ukraine and Serbia follow the Julian calendar and celebrate on January 19th. Lorraine Ferrier, NTD News.
That's all for now. Back to New York.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Hi, we're happy to announce that you can also catch us on cable TV now. Millions of households already choose us as one of their trusted news sources, and you can too. You can watch us in Chicago, Washington, D.C., New York, and many other cities as well. And if your system doesn't carry NTD yet, you can just give them a quick call